To one of the first female trailblazers of hip-hop, MC Lyte. Lyte exploded onto the scene in the late 1980s with her critically acclaimed album, Lyte as a Rock. Since then, she's released a total of 8 studio albums. Not only is she considered one of the best female hip-hop artists of all time, but also one of the most influential in the genre. Her story and rise to stardom will be highlighted in tonight's ABC special, The Real Queens of Hip-Hop, the women who changed the game, along with many other artists who've transformed hip-hop. Here's a sneak peek at Lyte's spoken word performance.
We persevere, becoming greater creators without pulling favors.
Showing up, showing out, proving we could be braver.
Exceeding all expectations, claiming our rightful spot
in this culture called hip-hop.
Joining us now is MC Lyte herself. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You know, I have to say that I've had the song Roughneck in my head all day, just knowing that I was going to get the chance to talk with you. So tell me about the influence of your mom as you were growing up and her stressing the importance of essay writing and the impact that that had on your lyrics.
Absolutely. Well, she studied to be a teacher, and I was her student. I was her pupil, and she would, it's simple things, you know, in the morning, I'd come into the restroom. She goes, "How you doing?" And I go, "Fine." And she goes, "Fine isn't good enough. How about you go to the thesaurus and you find another word?" And so every day I had to come up with another word to, you know, explain what it was that I was feeling.
And as we saw in tonight's special, you have a spoken word performance, a type of poetry style that you are now famous for. Explain to us how you think spoken word has influenced hip-hop culture.
Oh, boy. I still think that spoken word is the least tampered with when it comes to a message that needs to come through, mostly from the streets or from the community, because there's no one that sort of has a tally on it that you can't say this and you can't say that. So you can really just come from the heart and put it all out there. And with spoken word, you're allowed to just go into areas of sentiment that aren't necessarily accepted in hip-hop. So you can be vulnerable and you can be powerful, you can be strong, but there's all of these areas that you can touch. And so to be asked by Fatima Curry, the director, to do these spoken word pieces, it was right up my alley. I started with spoken word at 12, writing in a notebook. And most of my first album was actually it hailed from poetry in the book that we just eventually put to music.
And you're considered one of the first pioneers for female rappers. How hard was it for you to push through this male-dominated hip-hop scene, and how did you do it?
Well, it was absolutely not difficult at all because I wasn't thinking about it. I just was along for the ride. I was doing what I knew how to do, and that was come from the heart about subjects and topics that were facing and plaguing my generation. But I will say that although I'm looked upon as a legend or a trailblazer, of course there was Sha Rock from the Funky 4+1 More that I heard first, and Pebbly Pooh and Sparky D and Roxanne Shante and the real Roxanne and Salt and Pepper and so many that had come before me. But I'm happy to be here today doing what I love.
And as women continue to contribute to hip-hop music, the critique often discussed is how sexualization of women in the genre persists, whether it's through explicit lyrics or physical appearance. What are your thoughts about the music by female rappers of today and how that often differs from back in the day when there was often this social consciousness or playful aspect to the lyrics without being as explicit?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. You know, what's funny is while you were asking it, I was thinking to myself, it's changed for men as well. It may not be aesthetically, but certainly, you know, what it is that's being said. I remember I had never heard anyone use the B word until I went out west and I heard someone say the word B. You know, I was just like, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine hearing Rakim or, you know, KRS-One, Heavy D, Fresh Prince. They would never use language like that to talk about a sister. It just didn't make sense to me. But as it relates to women in hip hop, it's like showgirls. You know, I feel like when I watch a show that I'm at the Rockettes, you know. I also said the other day, if I were to perform somewhere, I would really feel old school because I'd have pants on. I don't think any of them perform with pants. It's like no longer the style. If you've got leg, you've got to show it. But the truth is, this is where we are everywhere in life. It's not just hip hop music. We've got to remember that the youngins that come out of hip hop now are just a reflection of what's happening in their communities, what it is that they're seeing on TV, what it is that they're being inspired by is what is pushing and propelling them to come out, say the things they say, look the way they look. I mean, I was a reflection of Caribbean culture in Brooklyn, New York. So that's why I had the asymmetrical haircut, and the big baggy clothes, the big earrings. People thought that I came up with that style. No, all of my Jamaicans, Haitians, Bajans, Barbadians, Guyanese, they were all in Brooklyn, and I just, you know, took their style because that's where I live. That's what it was. So I think it's just life dictating art.
Right, a sign of the time, certainly. And before we go, I want to give viewers a taste of the special tonight. Take a look at a clip.
Man, what have women in hip-hop given to the culture? Everything.
Why is it important that stories of pioneering women in hip-hop are told and explored in specials like tonight's The Real Queens of Hip-Hop? And what do you think that the future of women in hip-hop and hip-hop in general is going to look like?
Oh, goodness. Well, first off, I would say we do have a Real Queens of Hip Hop in the Queens show. So that's not to get confused because we're saying the documentary is called Real Queens, that there aren't any in the show. Eve, by far, is certainly a hip hop queen from Philly, repping. Thank you, Eve, for all of what you do. And I'm so glad that you have this opportunity on the show. Where do I think hip-hop is headed for female MCs, and why is it important that the legacy be told? Because it's very easy to forget. It's very easy to be in the now and not recognize all of those that came before. And if we make the decision to stop talking about them, then they will be forgotten. Well, you know, someone like Sparky D that came on the scene so hard and hit hard, and then we didn't hear from her. It's very easy for this generation to know nothing of her if we don't speak of her. So I just think that the history is important for any genre, but specifically for hip hop, because I'm a part of it. I'd say that it's important because there were so many women that brought so much knowledge and wisdom and power to hip hop, and many of the men in hip-hop know that they were inspired and influenced by some of the women. And I think it's important that they also tell the story too of how much women in hip-hop mean to the genre.
MC Lyte, thank you so much for your time. Truly a pleasure having you on. ABC's special, The Real Queens of Hip-Hop, The Women Who Changed the Game, airs tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on ABC and tomorrow on demand and on Hulu.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.